Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are going to be continuing on with Kindred. So, if you haven't listened to the first few episodes, please be sure to go check those out before jumping in over here. Also, it's important to listen to the first episode because I give some trigger warnings. And honestly, I would just, if you don't want to go back to the first episode, maybe just search them for yourself because it is a lot, and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. And yeah, please check those out just in case you need them. But yeah, this episode is going to get into a lot of great topics, so I'm excited. I hope you guys will enjoy it. But yeah, I think this is a really good episode, and I really, really, really love this book. So I hope you all are enjoying it too, and that you all are reading it and vibing with it as much as I am. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we're going to continue talking about Kindred, and this time we are talking about the chapter titled The Flight. And I am joined today by Candace.
Hi, everybody.
So much happens. This is such a long chapter.
Such a long chapter. Goes on forever. Most of them I noticed they have because the book is broken up into sub chapters kind of with the numbers. And numerically, I think this is the most I had read through that this far. Usually they end by 10 of those little dividers, but this is I don't know, what, 15?
Something
18
like that.
of them or something.
Yeah, it's really long, and I honestly ignore those. So I'm just like, whatever, that's a guide.
It helps me know when to pause because I get really sunken in sometimes, especially with this this book is going at breakneck speed in some chapters in some places. So it helps me figure out where I need to kind of bathroom break because I'm just so into it.
Yeah.
I'm eyes glued that I'm oh, it's a chapter. Okay, calm down.
Sometimes I pause.
Go get a snack
right before important parts happen. Like when someone says something right before something happens, I'm like, I need a second. Hold on.
You need to brace yourself.
Yeah. So I put the book down. I open my phone, look at nothing, close my phone, think about life, and then I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yep, absolutely.
This chapter has a lot of those moments.
A lot.
Yeah. So let's just start going right at the beginning. So this chapter is titled The Fight. I did hypothesize that this was going to be a Dana and Kevin fight. Kinda, not really.
No.
Not the center focus, but also sub-focus. We'll see. So, Dana is back modern day and kind of reflecting on her life a little bit. So we're getting more tiny tidbits, which is always fun. So apparently, Kevin, when they went to move in together, suggested that she gets rid of some of her books so they would fit into his apartment. And I'm like, I hate you. I hate you so much.
He was like, I'm going to help you figure out which books you should throw away.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for him to tell this educated Black woman, you don't need this much education. You've got me.
Yeah.
It's hard because I know that that's not his intention. He doesn't feel malicious. It doesn't seem like he's going out of his way to just be a right shit. That's not, you know what I mean? That's not what this is. However, that does not keep him from coming across that way.
I know. And it's I feel like it's also very easy to not reflect on yourself and think, hey, these are some things about myself that are not great. And I have this subconscious racism, and he just is it's totally not, because I am married to a Black woman. And I'm like, that doesn't excuse your behavior, my guy.
Well, I mean, even the way that he kind of asks or approaches the subject of marriage, he's just like, oh, you think you want to marry me or whatever? Yeah. It's not even a proper... And she's like, wait, you want to get married? That's the first time he says anything about it. It's not even romantic, and then right after gets mad at her for not writing his pages.
Literally,
he can't make up his mind.
Kevin,
he can't make up his mind.
This man is a trash bag.
I don't get it.
I don't know either. And then Kevin also told Dana to quit the agency and that he would help her until she found something better. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, no, 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 no,
No.
no, no. Listen, I don't like the idea of ever relying on someone else. Okay.
No.
I
Not
have,
completely.
yeah, I've always been very independent. Like,
Mhm.
I think that that shows a level of trust in your relationship already, but also, no, like, I can't imagine that.
No.
That horrifies me.
I agree. Because
Yeah.
then you're basically painted into a corner,
Mhm.
you know? And like sometimes that's not bad. Sometimes that's not a bad place to be if you can
Mhm.
truly trust the person that you're with, but I feel like because people tend to keep the worst secrets about themselves to themselves sometimes,
Mhm.
like it takes a lot of trust to believe that your partner is being clean with you about everything. You know, it takes
Mhm.
a lot of trust and time. And I don't know, it doesn't even really seem like she questions his intentions,
Yeah.
which is both surprising to me and a little foolish for the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my parents got married in 1989. My stepdad is Italian and white, and my mom is black. Like,
Mhm.
I've witnessed in real time what it's like to be like both a part of an interracial family and part of an interracial couple
Mhm.
myself. And there is still a lot of trust that you have to establish with your partner because
Mhm.
other people will try to kind of tear your relationship apart subconsciously or consciously, you know?
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me that she is so willing to put up with him, but I also think that he understands her ambition
Mhm.
and that for a woman in 1976 is probably a really big deal, right?
Mhm.
That he wants her to go further, he wants her to get published, he wants to find this future where they're both successful authors. Like he
Mhm.
puts himself before her, especially in asking her to like type up his manuscripts and stuff, but
Mhm.
he is still invested in her well-being, which
Mhm.
like to me and as a woman in 2021, it's like was that really like all women back then had to rely on? Is like that all it took is for a
Mhm.
guy to be like, I'm mostly
The bar's on
invested
the floor.
in
The
your
bar is on
success?
the floor.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're looking around like, my man better not expect me to wash dishes just because I'm a lady, right?
Mhm.
Like, we're at a place where it's like, you know, like whatever gender that you identify as, right? Like you can
Mhm.
be like people keep asking her like, why are you walking around looking like a man? Like that's not a thing anymore. So like there's already like kind of a separation between what's happening in this book and what
Mhm.
happens in like our day to day. But it was just wild to me to know that like this like paltry excuse for a man is like good enough for this lady.
I know.
I
I'm
don't.
just like, you are so awesome as a person
Yeah,
and, like,
she's a powerhouse.
yeah, and just so nice and trusting of others.
Yeah,
Like, ugh, she could do so much better.
so much better, so much better. And then she finds out his family is racist.
Yeah.
Which, like, I've been there too. Like, my stepdad's family had a very hard time when he married my mom. Like, it was
Mhm.
a 10-year long ordeal, in fact.
Mhm.
And, like, it was a lot. It was painful for pretty much everybody in my family. All of us had to kind of deal with that.
Mhm.
And, you know, for a minute, he wasn't involved with his family because he didn't want the pain. And then after a while, my mom was actually the one that was like, listen, like, you can't just be apart from your family. It's certainly not because of me and because of the kids that we have together. So we're going to have to try to make this work.
Mhm.
And you know, through other family members trying to kind of like encourage it and to show, you know, that level of like family and tolerance and love, we were kind of able to get to a place that was moderately better and know these
Mhm.
people and be in their lives. And like we are still as a family questioning whether or not it was entirely worth it because it was hard. Like it was a
Yeah.
lot. And so like this woman is like telling him like I am willing to go to bat for you.
Mhm.
I'm willing to jump in front of this fucking moving train for you and be invested in this relationship. And I just feel like he could do more. And like I get it. He's willing
Yeah.
to just like leave his family and not give a shit about what their expectations of him are, right? He's
Mhm.
willing to be like, I don't care. My sister can come for me if she wants. Her best friend used to be black. If she's racist because of the guy that she married and not because that's what she actually believes in,
Mhm.
which to me is kind of an excuse. That's a weak excuse, but people still use it to this day. So like I guess I
Yeah.
can't really like say anything about it, but um it's just wild to know that like his sister has no good reason to dislike her,
Mhm.
but her family, who eventually comes around, right? Her aunt and uncle that raised her,
Mhm.
they do find distaste in who she's marrying, more her uncle, because he feels rejected. He feels like, oh, you didn't go for somebody who looks like me or shares experiences with me,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that I could see eye to eye with. You know what I mean? And like that's something that, you know, I can get my head around, despite it not being correct. Like I can
Yeah.
understand like where he's coming from. It's not blind hatred, it's
Mm-hmm.
a distrust, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it's like I get it too. It's because it's like, you know, as a society, the point in time in which this is, like, that's one, super uncommon. And two, it's like, I also feel like he's coming from a place where he has Dana's best interest at heart. You
Mhm.
know,
Yep.
he's legitimately more so worried. Nothing like wrong with Kevin, you know, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
more about her safety.
yeah. And
Especially because she said that her mom, I think, right? Either her mom
Mhm,
or her uncle like has a breakdown in a city somewhere in California, like Canada, I think.
mhm.
And says that like they had a really bad experience with racist people there, and I guess like he admits that that's where his brother-in-law and his sister live. This place
Yeah.
that like had a horrible reputation for being, you know, maybe even like a sundown town, it's kind of implied.
Mhm,
So, you know, I can understand why her uncle would feel strongly, like he has reason to,
mhm.
whereas like Kevin's family doesn't have a reason to. They're just racist.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So ridiculous.
Literally. And it's like also Kevin doesn't even talk to his like mom at all. He just talks to that one sister.
Yeah.
So it's like I even feel like for Kevin it shouldn't be the biggest deal because it's not like he even seems to care about his family at all.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like Kevin. So Kevin is saying that like they could get married and then once again says, even I'd let you type up all my manuscripts. And then she drops the truth bomb on us that she talks about how when she denies that she doesn't want to, like when she refuses about doing the manuscripts, he gets like literally angry with her.
Hmm. Yep.
And I'm like, red flag number
Huge.
87.
Huge.
There's so many red flags in this relationship.
Yeah,
You
there
know,
are.
I think this relationship is literally founded on one single red flag. Like, I don't like it at
Yeah.
all.
I agree. It's especially hard when you realize that like she feels like she doesn't have options sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's
Hmm.
rough to me. And she doesn't talk about anybody else she's ever been involved with. She doesn't
Hmm.
talk about what came before Kevin or who came before Kevin. It's just him,
Yeah.
which
And
I find interesting.
it also seems like she doesn't really have friends,
Yeah.
you
Like she's
know?
isolated.
Hmm.
It's
So
wild.
that makes it worse.
It does. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. So Kevin's like, hey, how about we just go to Vegas and pretend we don't have relatives and get married? Like, yeah, that's what everyone wants to hear.
Super romantic. Thanks.
Yeah, you're like, awesome. I love that. Thank you. Like, I will say, I just I feel like for some people getting married in Vegas is like a cool thing. Like I'm all for elopements because I kind of want to get eloped. I don't know if I want my whole family and extended family and everybody there. Like that seems like a
Mhm.
lot for me.
Sure.
Kind of into it. Also money.
Hmm.
So, but like Dana didn't even get a proposal, and
Mm-mm.
now she doesn't get to have her family at this wedding.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like she really had a choice at all in this. He just was like, said it, and she was like, okay.
Yeah, so she symbolically like signs away her life to this other man. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because like I mean marriage obviously is supposed to be a partnership and a union
Mm-hmm.
rather than a transaction. But like because he put so much focus on, you know, her skills as a typist and stuff, it
Mm-hmm.
feels transactional, unfortunately, especially with the lack of proposal.
Yeah.
And I just feel like she I feel like she accepts Vegas because she doesn't have like a mom or dad, like her parents are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she recognizes there's really not much she can do to change her uncle's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just like, shrug, okay, fine, let's just go. Um, to me, though, what I think is so telling, though, is the symbolism of what they find when they get home. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah. Well, I'm immediately going to that next note is when they get home, she has a check from the Atlantic because her story made it, and she got a blender from her best friend.
Right. And like, so we know that she has a best friend. No other mention of her though, or them, excuse me, because we don't
Mhm.
even know if it's a man or a woman or
Yeah.
someone who, identifies as either.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know if the blender is supposed to be symbolic of like the blending of the two of them. I'm trying not to like get too crazy about reading into stuff. But like the fact that like she comes home after he's harassing her to like help him with his project and therefore taking time away from her own, if we're going to be
Mhm.
honest, right? Like she comes home from getting married and basically signing herself away to
Mhm.
this man to find out that like she is as good as she thought and she was published.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
published in like a nice magazine, not
Yeah,
published in like some trash. You know what I'm saying? Like in a great publication.
I know.
So
It very much felt like, in like a movie where, like, right as the killer's like, not the killer, let's say right when the hero comes to save her, the damsel in distress already like signed an agreement with the
mhm.
villain.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
that's what it
getting.
feels like to you.
Right? Yeah. Cuz like he's not great.
He's not.
We're halfway through this book at this point, and I
Mhm.
have not seen a single redeeming quality of this man.
Yeah, because like all he's really got is that he loves her, but it's kind of unfounded as to like what it is about her that he loves because it's like does
Yeah.
he love her typing skills? Does he love her body? Does he love
Uh-huh.
her mind? Does he love how brilliant she is? Does he love how beautiful she is?
Mhm.
Her, I don't think he really does a lot of complimenting other than to say like you can do it,
Yeah.
which is very
Great.
general.
Yeah, I know I can do it. What?
What does that mean? Yeah.
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 I don't like this at all. Yeah. Okay. So, now we flash back to the present,
Mhm.
and Dana is at home and she ended up in her bathroom. Her back is absolutely annihilated because remember when we last left off, she was getting whipped in
Mhm.
the past.
Yeah.
So absolutely horrifying. She then has to go and like clean herself up, trying to like bathe everything while like all these wounds are fresh.
Mhm.
Um Kevin didn't make it back. And in my notes, I literally said, which sounds like a him problem. Because, like, here's the thing. One, she told him not to go. Okay.
That's true. She did tell him to just like leave me.
Uh huh.
Don't touch me when I'm leaving.
And two, he should not have left her out of his eyesight the
Yeah.
entire time. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm stuck in the past, the only way I can get back is through my wife. I'm sorry. I would not, like, I don't care how lax you get, not out of my sight the entire time.
Well, this is what I'm saying, though. I think that's just a testament to
Mhm,
his overall feelings, right? Which we kind of visited in our last episode,
mhm.
talking to her about like, oh, I thought it was going to be worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that guy is like, ooh, I'm a history buff. It's
Mhm.
so cool that I got transported back in time. I bet you anything this dude has his moleskin out and he's like taking notes for his next novel. Like I swear to God.
Yep.
Like that dude is like walking around, he's looking at the old books in the Wayland's
Mhm,
house, like he's spending his days reading by the fire. Like he's not thinking about what could possibly happen to her or he would be
mhm.
with her all the time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like period.
I will also say too, I have a sneaking suspicion that Kevin set up Tom Whalen going in that house.
Really.
I think so because he said something in the last chapter about making sure, like, to surprise her or to
Oh,
get
that's
her
right, to send her
to
home.
trigger this event to get her home. I think he set that up because there's no reason Tom should have gone in there at all.
Agree.
So
Totally random.
it's completely random. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to be in there.
And
Some.
they even establish, like,
Hmm.
but Butler and the rest of the enslaved people there,
Hmm.
like, especially Sarah, they underscore that he never comes out there.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
he walked in there with a purpose on a hunt.
Yeah,
He didn't casually stroll in. No one just slams a door open if they're casually strolling in. Okay.
true.
They like slowly open a door,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
especially Tom Whalen, who has servants so that he doesn't have to walk anywhere.
right.
No reason for him to be in there at all. And especially in the cookhouse.
Yeah.
Why would he be where the cooking is?
He would be more likely to, like, be outside near the fields
Yeah.
than he would be in the cookhouse, like, the only other people that are in that cookhouse are either people who are going to help Sarah or
Mm-hmm.
people who are in there like enslaved people that are eating. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't know if it was like Kevin. I would love to find out. I
Mm-hmm.
like that there are moments in this book where you have to like wait to find out who did something, and then you
Yeah.
finally do get that payoff. So I'm hoping that we get that payoff.
Hope at the end they get a divorce because, like, oh my God, so bad. Ugh. But that's what my theory is. Okay. I think Kevin set this all up. I think he set it into action. Um, but that's why I think that was a hidden problem because I'm telling you right now, if I found out, I would be like, I don't know what the easiest way to like, like those kid toddler leashes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of situation. We're gonna be like tied together. I don't care how with like one of those like bungee strings for cats. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so we can like kind of get apart, but like it's gonna be annoying.
Yeah.
We're gonna be right next to each other the whole time. Because like if I'm not holding your hand, we're gonna be connected in some way. I don't care
Yeah, I
how that
feel
way
that.
is. Yeah.
I feel that in my bones. That's too scary.
Yeah. No, I'm
And
not.
like he
Mm-mm.
never even took responsibility for going back in time with her either. She's like,
Mm.
"Why did you do this?" He's like, eh.
Eh,
Like he doesn't really have like a reaction at all.
literally. Literally. This dude could have died. Like
Yeah.
of like, I don't know. I don't know what's going through. Like syphilis? I don't know.
Anything.
Anything.
Anything. A paper cut.
Yeah.
Like literally anything could kill you back then.
Right?
Dog bite. Anything.
This man's lucky that he's already defeated the common cold. Like,
Seriously. And that he has vaccines.
yeah.
Like that's crazy to me. One of the things that like really struck me though, like as she's kind of wondering where he is, like she's wondering what happened to him. She's wondering if he's okay. Meanwhile, he's a white guy in the 1800s. He's fine.
Yeah.
But she's like, what's gonna happen to him? Is he all right? Whatever, right? And then like her attention turns to herself, just barely.
For
Like
like a
she's
minute.
crying. Yeah, she's like crying into this like bloody water that
Mhm.
she's like sitting in the bathtub because she can't even take her shirt off
Mm-hmm.
because like some of the blood has dried and wounds have already started to kind of scab over,
Yeah.
and it's stuck to her shirt. And she says something about her wounds soften under the water,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's actually something she goes on to say in this chapter. 2 or 3 more times she mentions someone's wounds have to soften, or my wounds will soften with water or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like to me it's so harsh to read that because I feel like the purpose of us going through time with Dana is that she has a certain amount of awareness of herself and of her relationship, but she doesn't have the full story, right? So this is giving her the full story and full insight into not just her own family, but how things were back then. Like at this point in time, nobody wanted to, it's kind of like what we're going through right now, right? Like in the 60s, people threw rocks at black children that were trying to go to school with them. Now those people are 55, 60 years old and they don't want their grandchildren and their children to know that they threw rocks at black people in 1965, right?
Yeah.
So, like it's kind of something similar I feel like for this environment is that like it's 1976, right? A lot has happened. There's been a lot of progress in the world, but also not a lot of progress as we now know, right?
Yeah.
And she's trying to kind of like reconcile this knowledge of slavery, right? And again, like schools didn't really teach that because it's a national shame, just like, it's hard to have a conversation about something that like people are still profiting off of today. Like anyone who owns any kind of plantation land, there's plantation weddings, there's towns called plantation. Like we're still very much living in this antebellum environment where slavery was definitely a thing that happened, but people don't want to talk about it because they're afraid it's going to be divisive, instead of recognizing that like it can help mend wounds, right? Wounds tend to soften over time, whether you want them to or not. And if you pay attention to them and you listen to the history that goes along with those wounds and the trauma that went along with those wounds, you stand to gain progress from it, right? But like with this, there's no progress to be gained. You know what I mean? Like she's doing everything she can to intervene with Rufus and doesn't yet know if she's even cracked the surface. You know what I mean? Like she's doing all of this work to try and fix the mess that someone else made at another time that has now affected her life in a serious like life or death, like a mortal kind of way, and she's talking about the softening of her wounds, and she's like laying there in the bathtub and it doesn't even occur to her to wash her hair. Like she's still not really thinking about herself. She's reflecting on what's happened to her and wondering when she's going to go back. Like she's already trying to plot her next move to like get Kevin back, to talk to Rufus again. Like, she has open wounds on her back. And I think it's also important too, because I think a lot of people sometimes downplay slavery.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, well, there was room and board. These people were kept fed. They had
Yeah.
clothes. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. Like, that's better than, what is the alternative? Like, forcing people to work for you and not giving them a place to stay and sleep, and not giving them clothes so that they get sick and die, and then you can't force them to work for you. Like, hello.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People want to, like, maybe try to be reasonable about this subject. And I think for her, when she, like, talks about how she's seen pictures of slaves with, with marks on their backs, and, all these keloids and these thick scars that are really ugly. And she comments on how, like, her husband, used to comment on how soft and smooth her skin was, and now she's forever changed
Mm-hmm.
by what she experienced, you know what I mean, at the Whalen House. And it's like, for the first time, because I mean, I have an even more detached understanding of slavery as a Black American in 2021. You know what I mean? Like, that was
Mm-hmm.
like genuinely lifetimes ago for me, even though that's not really that long. You know what I mean? There are still people alive whose moms were slaves. So, just barely, but still, like, we're not that far away from it. So she's taking, like, what she knew to be true before she had this experience, all these pictures she saw of people that have been victimized, and then kind of, like, reconciling that with her own experience, and, like, looking in the mirror at her body and how broken it is, and knowing what she went through just one time,
Mm-hmm.
let alone multiple times over a lifetime. And I think that there's so much gravity and weight to that. Like, this, like in my opinion, one of the things that Butler is so good at in this book is, like, providing you with, like, a drop of water and having that be able to, like, nourish your entire body. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? In
Mm-hmm.
analyses. Like,
I
she's
know.
like, here is a smattering of 6 sentences, and you're like, oh my God, my life is over. This is so traumatic to read. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she really, like, packs it in.
I think this is really pointed out too when she talks to Sarah later in this chapter.
Mhm.
Like when she's finally starting to like reconcile, like I think it's easy for a lot of us when we learn about like slavery in
Mhm.
like middle school and high school and stuff, to be like, well, why didn't they just all run away? And
Right.
I think that Dana still had that perception.
Absolutely.
And then like she finally is living it and she's like, oh, this is not as easy as anticipated. And it's like reading this in a narrative form instead of out of like a textbook
Mhm.
is really kind of, it's opening, like it opens your eyes in a very different way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's instead of just like thinking of it like figuratively, you're
Mhm.
like, oh, this like literally, like this allows you to attach a person to these kinds of events.
Absolutely. And, like, so for me, I've read a lot of, just in my studies in general,
Mm-hmm.
I've read a lot of, like, slave narratives, right? Which are
Mm-hmm.
firsthand accounts from people who either told their story to somebody who could write, or against all odds learned how to write.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely say that, like, those are chilling to read. Like, the
Yeah.
autobiography of Frederick Douglass is a hard read. Um, Reading, like, any of it, all of
Mm-hmm.
it, it's traumatic. It's traumatizing when you read it. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's different reading a firsthand account, because that is one person's experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have somebody that is a third party that is watching all of this go on, right? That's, to me, when it becomes more profound. Like, this is a deeply humanizing portrait of slavery. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And, like, there's a lot of work that has been done, to talk about things like that, especially as time goes on and we
Mm-hmm.
have fewer and fewer people to ask. You know what I mean? Now we have nobody that was a slave once upon a time. We have
Mm-hmm.
sharecroppers, sure, but no one that was actually a slave during slavery. Like, we don't have anybody to talk to about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So now all we really have are, like, studies and firsthand accounts and charters and things like that that we can pull information from to come up
Mm-hmm.
with these. And what I think I found the most interesting, like, about all of this and about the tale that she's telling, is the fact that, again, like, she's giving, like, she's raising old ghosts
Mm-hmm.
that aren't really that old,
Yeah.
and drawing a very sharp parallel
Mm-hmm.
between what's going on in the 1970s and what's going on in that book. And, like, as we continue to talk, because I mean, I know we have much more to cover,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, as we continue to talk, like, there was a lot that I read that was a direct parallel and a direct commentary to what's going on even now in
Yeah,
2021.
for sure.
So I think it's so impactful. Like, I really do.
I always talked about this when I was going through like, you know, my K through 12 years.
Hmm.
I really wish that, you know, they would have connected English and history more.
Oh yeah.
Like it's so people are way more sympathetic and more understanding when they have stories and firsthand accounts to go through. And like for me, I got UK history, so
Mhm.
like I learned about World War One and World War Two, and I could not tell you a single thing that happens because it's a textbook, and
Yeah.
textbooks do not read like anything that I want to remember.
Yep.
Like it's just straight
It's
fact
like a
after
list of
fact.
facts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a listicle, and I don't
Mhm.
care, you know?
Mhm.
But instead, like, if you got stories like this, it's so much easier and like people empathize and they want to actually learn, and it's more of a cautionary tale of history and why you shouldn't repeat it, and
Right.
instead of like trying to cover up history like they were trying to do a couple years ago and probably are
Yeah.
still trying to do.
Oh,
um
definitely.
you know
People are like losing their minds over critical race theory, and it's like critical race theory is just telling the full story
mhm
of America, right? And like anybody who, in my opinion anyway, this is obviously all me, and I
mhm
mean, someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the most patriotic thing you could possibly do for your country is to admit that your country was wrong
mhm
and show how it could be better and how it's trying to be, right?
mhm
Like evolution and advancement to me are the markers of a successful civilization, right? If you
mhm
don't evolve, then you die. There's tons of civilizations that are beneath the seas that are, have fallen to ruins, right? Like our country is extremely young compared to everybody else's country for the most
mhm
part, you know what I mean? And in the world, compared to many countries. And we have been fighting other forces, external forces, as
mhm.
well as each other for a long time, like since
Yeah.
the inception of it, right? Like that's how it was made. Like literally, we are, around the Thanksgiving time now that we are talking, right?
Mhm
And that's literally what the holiday is about the taking of our country from
mhm
the original stewards of of our land. So, like I think that the further away we get, like I agree with you, the further away that you get, like the harder it is to even kind of sympathize
mhm
with people. So like even now, right? You have people that have done this work of trying to undermine and kind of undercut the importance of what happened 100 years ago, right?
mhm
Between now and 100 years ago, how life was, how life has progressed for Black people, whatever. Is it a triumph that we had a Black president? Yes. Is it a triumph that that Black president had racist people try to block every single thing that he tried to do at every turn? No, that's not okay. But like nobody wants to act like it's racism because
mhm
then that's going to make everybody else kind of get called into question. It's almost like a lie that everybody is trying to perpetuate so they don't have to look at their own behavior.
mhm
I mean, like I have a friend that didn't even know her parents were racist until I tried to visit their home one day. And she was like, "Oh, well, I didn't know that." You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah
you know what I mean? You just didn't know. Like, you thought that things were fine. You thought, oh, but this couldn't be how my family
mhm
is. You know what I mean? Because you think that they're better than that. And it's hard because, again, that's what happened to my dad. My dad was like, of course they're not going to mind that the love of my life is a beautiful, deep skinned, athletic Black woman. Of course they're not going to mind. She's amazing.
mhm
She's well read. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met. Like, he's going into it thinking things are going to be great. Maybe they won't like it, but they'll get over it. And
mhm
they didn't for
yeah
almost 10 years or longer. So like, you see what I mean? So it's like you everybody I think for a long time has thought, well, we can move past it, but you can't move past it when everything you're doing each day is trying to undermine it, undercut it, and pretend like it wasn't that big of a deal.
mhm absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Ah, the world. Anyways, back into more Kindred.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so speaking of Dana just being worried about Kevin, she's like, "What if he went west?" And I'm like, "Good for him. Get out of there. I don't care." Again,
Maybe I'll get killed on the frontier.
yeah, I'm like, sounds like once again him problem.
Yeah,
Whatever.
for
Get
sure.
this man out of here. I don't care. People are like, "Wow, Rachel, that's so mean and cold hearted." Good, good.
Read the book. You will not feel bad anymore.
I think everybody listening to this podcast is also letting this be a Kevin hate podcast, unless he does something super redeemable at the end, and then everyone's gonna be like, "You just wait, blah blah blah," and I'm gonna get like emails when this comes out, and everyone's gonna be like, "I can't believe you hated Kevin. I hate Kevin."
Listen, this man is gonna have to be fucking Santa Claus
Uh-huh.
traveling on a sleigh, giving kids presents,
Mhm.
including ones that don't believe in him,
Yeah.
all across everywhere in this entire globe for me to be like, maybe he's not so bad.
Yeah. He's gonna have to, like, campaign for something
Yeah.
amazing, give free universal health care to all
Yeah.
those in need, and then
Yeah.
also rehome a bunch of school children, and
Yep.
then save puppies and kiss their little heads for me to be
Yep.
like, "You know what, Kevin? Maybe not the worst.
Maybe not so bad
Maybe
after
not
all.
so bad." And the maybe is like a harsh maybe, okay?
Agree.
Like,
Even then you keep one eye open, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if he went to therapy at the end, I would be like, "Perfect. You know what? Actually,
Agree.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. I can get behind
Trying to fix
this."
that mental health. Good job,
Mhm,
guy. You
mhm.
have a superiority complex that you're not even good at hiding.
Yeah, it's fragile masculinity, a little too high for me.
Oh, so fragile.
Very fragile, very toxic, not a fan.
Mhm. No.
Not a fan.
No.
So, yeah, with all that in mind, I will just continue to roast Kevin. As I should, truly. Um, but yeah, Dana's like, "I'm worried he's not gonna be there waiting for me when I get back," which, again, if your wife was the only person that could get you back to the year 1976, I don't care if she's gone for 1 year. I don't care if she's gone for 50 years. I am not leaving. I would have a home on the, like, literal outside, like,
Yep.
property line,
Yep.
watching binoculars every single day to see just in case if she comes back. And there's no indoor plumbing in the antebellum South.
Nope.
I don't want to be there. I don't care how long it takes. I am getting back to the year I came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Agree.
And like Kevin's like,
Agree.
I
There's
need
no
to
other
look
way.
for work, blah, blah, or whatever. We'll get into that. I have more roast session in momentarily. Give me a moment. We'll get there. So after Dana comes out of the shower, she's like, I should probably put a long dress on. Looks in her closet. I don't have a long dress. Which, like, honestly, I read that and I was like, how do you have a long dress? And then I looked in my closet. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Like,
I was like, what could I wear if I went back to slavery? I have like one dress from Anthropology
mhm,
that is brown. It has brown, it's a brown plaid dress, but it
yeah.
has like a cutout across the boobs to
Mm,
show off if you have a little bit of cleavage on.
yeah.
And like it's only non-form fitting when you don't like wear the little matching belt. And I was like, I can't wear this. And it's short. It's not even a long dress. The
Yeah.
longest dress I have is a rainbow dress.
You can't wear
Can't wear
that.
that.
I have one that's like looser fitting, long sleeve, comes like crew neck-ish. But it's like right at the knee level. And I was like,
Mhm.
I can't do that. And I don't have anything else to wear. Like, have you seen Bridget Jones' Diary?
Yes.
Yeah. I would look like Bridget Jones the entire time. Like in my little like leather jacket, skinny jeans.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because again, I put a cute outfit on for Thanksgiving with my family because,
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen them in a couple weeks and I was like trying to look nice for everybody.
Mhm.
And my nice jeans are jeans that have holes in the knees because that's how I felt cute.
Sure.
I if I got teleported back in time and my nice jeans, someone would try
Oh,
and
yeah,
patch them for me.
they would.
And they'd also be like, "Why are they so skinny? Why
Yeah.
why?"
First of all, you have very long hair for a man. Second of
Yeah.
all, give me your pants so I can patch them.
Yeah,
I'm also gonna let the bottoms out so that your ankles can breathe.
there we go. I mean, the only good thing is that I have, like, my facial features. I think I could get away with looking like a man if I just
Listen,
shaved my head. I think
I
I can
think
make it happen.
I think that every single woman put in this
Mhm.
position would be like, "Surely I can pass as a man.
I know. That's
Surely I
yeah,
can. I don't have to wear makeup. I'll be fine.
I
I'm just
know.
gonna cut my hair."
Mhm.
There's one point where Dana's like, "Yeah, I put my hair up under a hat. It wasn't that long anyway." I was like, "Must be nice because I have to like do all kinds of crazy stuff to my giant poof to put that under any hat.
Yeah.
It's not going away quietly."
Luckily, too, I have, like, what I would consider to be almost a little bit of a deeper voice for a woman, you know?
Same.
So,
Yep.
I feel like if they didn't look too hard,
Yeah.
and I just could grab a hold of some scissors real quick, I might be able to make it happen, okay?
Convincing enough to be left alone.
Yeah. Convincing enough that it was like if I was walking alone at night,
They'd think twice.
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
change my gait a little. I mean, I
Yeah.
am pretty tall, so I could I would try. I would at least try, you know?
Yeah, that's my problem. I'm only 5'6". They'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so scrawny?" And I'd
Yeah.
be like, "Huh, I'm obviously the toughest man you've met yet."
I mean, I'm
Not convincing.
5'7"
No,
ish.
but you look tall though. You're tall.
Yeah. I'm also like I arm wrestle, so I'm a little like built out in the shoulders, you know. So I would definitely like see that like bodybuilding bro at the gym, and I'd start
Yeah.
walking like that. Like I take up way too much space, you know. You rotated the hip the whole time you're walking,
Listen, you would be fine until they were like, "You're a white man. Help us tie up this black person." And then
and
you'd
then
be
I'm
like,
like,
"Right."
oh,
Maybe not. Maybe not. So I'm a lady.
yeah.
Ladies can't tie things up. So
I'd
I
be
know
like,
my hair is short. I know my hair is short and I'm wearing pants, but I'm a lady and I can't be tying people up.
I feel like the
So
worst part too is I'd be like, oh no, he got loose. Oh no,
what are we gonna
what are
do?
we
I
gonna
can't
do?
run.
I can't
Both
run.
my ankles are broken.
I got a bum knee. Oh, that knee's bum too. My hips don't work. They don't lie.
Sorry.
I'm just, yeah, I don't know. Okay.
So awkward.
Yeah.
This lady really does take it in stride, though. I think I probably would have died the second that I got back there. I would like
Oh,
somebody would have walked up to me and been like, "N-word, what are you about?" And I would have been like, "Fuck you," and then that would have been
yeah.
it.
I know. And
That would have been
even
the
being
end
able
of
to
my
stop
story.
and process was a lot better than what I would do. Because,
Yeah, yeah.
I think the second someone said that about another person, because
You're like, "Hold on."
because I well, one, I'm obviously a white woman. Two, I am aggressive and angry. So, if I heard someone say that, my fist would be flying before I could even rationally think
Yep.
about my surroundings. Like
Yeah.
it's it's not a I'm not saying it's a good habit, but I'm also saying that I would have very quickly been found out that I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yes. Yes, very obvious. But again, I feel like part of that is
Mhm.
because of the difference between 1976 and
Mhm.
2021. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have like she wasn't this lady is still burning bras. Like that's the the year she's in, right?
Mhm.
Equal rights amendment and stuff. Like she's still, compared to where we think we are,
Mhm.
she's in the dark ages still. Like the
Yeah.
70s was like a whole other ass time, right? So like for her, she is being progressive. Just
Mhm.
sticking up for herself is progressive to her, which
Yeah.
is wild to me.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm just like, "Oh, you don't cause a scene because 'Cause I'm causing a scene."
How do you do anything other than cause a scene?
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't have much going for me right now. So,
I can afford it.
yeah, I can afford it. Like, what's a little bit of lawyer fees, right? I don't
Can be done.
yeah.
Can be done. I'll beat the rap.
Yeah, whatever. I
Not back then though. Back then they're like, "Well, we have these dogs that we're going to have chase you down until they eat you alive." And you're like, "All right. I guess I'll shut the fuck up then."
yeah. Yeah, like, let's go Dana for honestly having critical thinking skills because obviously
Listen.
I don't have them.
Listen, she looked around and was like, "I'm gonna be a little quieter."
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I was like, "Man, so well adjusted."
I know. I honestly, in my job, there's been a couple instances where Daniel's been like pretty surprised that I've been able to bite my tongue as loud as possible, as long as possible. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, buddy, I'm 3 seconds away. You don't even know. You don't even know.
I'm trying not to act out.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
So Dana's trying to eat and get cleaned up. She packed another go bag because, of course, she lost hers
Mhm.
when that, catastrophe hit. And then officially we are past now 1 day of her being home.
Right.
So even though she was stuck in the past for 2 months, she officially like realizes that it's only been like mere minutes since
Yeah.
she's officially like been gone. So
Yeah,
that's
there's no correlation.
that's kind of convenient for her. Like that's nice.
Like, it's convenient in one sense because, like, she's not missing huge swaths of time in
Mhm.
her own life, but at the same time, it's horrifying because
Yeah.
she never knows what she's gonna find. Like, at least if the time was, like, equal, so, like, you know, maybe she's,
Mhm.
having, like, 2 months in this place and then a month in her time,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's gone or whatever, and she can kind of like do an equation to figure out exactly what she's
Mm-hmm.
missing. But like instead it's like, because it's not even like there's a basic equivalent, because she kind of remarks on that, how like when she had left the first time, she was gone for like a couple of minutes. She was there for a couple of minutes and it was mere seconds
Mm-hmm.
where she was, right? In real life. And then the second time she's gone, she's there for 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually ends up feeling more like, I think she said it's like a couple of hours
Yeah.
or like half a day or something like that, right? So she's like, okay, 2 months is like half a day or a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
So this time, how long has it been? And she's back to a couple of seconds being missed,
Mm-hmm.
but she's been there for a while. You know what I'm saying? So every time she goes, I feel like time messes with her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How long she's been away versus like when she like where she like lands in Rufus's life. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like there's no correlation between how long she's gone and how long she stayed.
I will say that it's lucky though that it doesn't seem to be super long spans of time, because like in the modern day, like her family would probably file like missing person reports,
Yeah,
and she'd miss mortgage payments and stuff like that, like important things in her life that she has to take care of, so that she
absolutely.
can keep the home and the life she has to come back to. Otherwise, she wouldn't have
Right.
anything.
Right. She'd have absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So, Dana ends up calling her cousin and is like, "Hey, could you bring some groceries over?" But when the cousin comes over, she sees bruises and she assumes Kevin was the cause. And it's like Dana didn't really correct her, which
Hmm.
I thought was really interesting,
Yeah.
because I feel like in a roundabout way, like Kevin's a player in this. And
Hmm.
like it's too much work for Dana to, excuse away like and explain what's actually happening. And I think it's interesting that she didn't fight for Kevin. Like,
Yeah.
I think she's subconsciously hurt by the fact that he came with her,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. And I think too that like part of it is that, as women, like we tend to keep each other's secrets, right?
Mhm.
Like when someone is in an abusive situation,
Mhm.
your first instinct is to jump in,
Mhm.
right? And to like try to save that person. But a lot of people are not ready to leave
Mhm.
that abusive situation. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? They don't have the like a mental and emotional stability
Mhm.
to be able to go, okay, I can come up with a plan,
Yeah.
because they're so deeply ingrained in their trauma. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think the way that she phrased it too, like, I never thought you would be fool enough to let a man beat you,
Mhm.
right? And she's like, yeah, me either. And like
Yeah.
you realize that this is like she's experiencing this duality of presence, right? She's
Mhm.
this person that's tough, she's strong, she's intelligent, she's brilliant, right?
Mhm.
She knows how to do a whole host of shit because of like the awesome jobs that she's had,
Mhm.
no matter how menial they seemed at the time. Like she's learned a lot, right?
Mhm.
In her weird her temping or whatever. But like she's beat like through no control of her own. You see what I'm saying? Like, so
Mhm.
when someone hits her, it's because they chose to do that, and that's the same with anybody.
Mhm.
No woman, even in a domestic violence situation, lets herself get hit,
Yeah.
lets herself get beaten by a man. Now, I mean, you can retaliate and you can kill that person,
Mhm.
or you can die trying. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, you can fight back. But I don't know any woman that like walks into that and is like, yeah, this is fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like even the way they're talking about it, I feel like it's a parallel for the way that the way that Dana felt about slavery. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, why would people allow this?
Mhm.
How did this happen?
Mhm.
Right? Because we know that it happened, but a lot of people, I mean, even Kanye West, like 2 years ago, was like, oh, at some point you choose slavery, which is insane.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that like that's kind of what this book does. Like again, we were talking about humanizing
Mhm.
that slave narrative and the story of people who experienced slavery firsthand.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's exactly what this is doing, because again, like none of those people chose that life.
Yeah.
None of them chose to be cramped in a disgusting, filthy, crowded vessel
Mhm.
for 3.5 weeks to months at a time to go wherever it is somebody else decided to take you. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, it was traumatic. The whole thing was horrifying and shocking and scary. Like, basically hundreds of thousands of people were kidnapped.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I felt like, her conversation with her cousin, and then even her thoughts, like when she goes outside and she sees her neighbor planting in her garden and she reminds her of Margaret Wayland, right?
Mhm.
Like, I feel like that's kind of an allegory or metaphor for maybe not allegory, but a metaphor for that duality.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Where her reality isn't Like no one else understands her reality. Her reality is wholly different. And sometimes as a Black American, like I've absolutely felt that way. Where like, all my coworkers are like, "Wow, Juneteenth? Did you hear about this new holiday?" And I'm like, I mean, it's not new,
Yeah.
but yeah. You know what I mean? Like, "Hey, Candace, did you know there was a Black national anthem?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." You know what I mean? Like I like it feels like you're in the twilight zone sometimes
Yeah.
because you're like, doesn't everybody know? Like, even like whenever there's, a trial, like a big case
Mhm.
that's out there or something, right? Like when someone asks me, "Oh, were you surprised that this crazy person, didn't get any jail time? Were you surprised that like that the man who murdered George Floyd, right, is going to jail?"
Mhm.
The answer is yes, I did not expect justice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there are a lot of people who can't understand that. Like even, my Italian stepdad has a hard time because he tends to be optimistic that justice is going to be done. But
Mhm.
I have no reason to believe justice is going to be done because I've seen my ancestors not have any justice.
I have
You know
to
what I mean?
yeah, I have to out myself for a second, because my lack of knowledge really quick. I was planning my social calendar for a job I had,
Mhm.
and I'm looking through all the American holidays trying to make sure that I have them all written down,
Mhm.
and I happened to see Juneteenth, and I didn't know
Mhm.
what it was. So I
Sure.
turned to my Black coworker, and I said, because who happened to be also like my coworker, like we did the
Mhm.
same stuff, And I said, "Hey, do you happen to know what Juneteenth is?" And she looked at me really weird and was like, "Yeah, I do." And I was
Mhm.
like, "Well, what is it?" And she's like, "You should probably just Google that one." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay."
It's a lot.
And I was like, la la la. And then like you Google it and I was like, oh my God. Like, first
Yeah.
of all, one, I looked horrible in that moment, being like, hey, I felt like I was like, when you ask people of a culture to be basically Google for you, it felt like that
Mhm.
moment. But I was doing that
Yeah.
unconsciously and I felt real bad about
Sure.
it. Real bad. And I like she up and quit like days later after that moment. And so I've never been able to be like, "Hey, sorry," and build like an actual like rapport with her. And
Right.
it's too late now. It's been like 2 years, but like I think about that all the time.
Yeah. Listen, I think that's I mean, the fact that that is a moment that you remember
Mhm.
means that, like, you gave a shit, and I think that
Yeah.
that really means something because a lot of people just kind of have that moment, and then they don't even go look it up on
It
Google.
haunts me.
And, like, I've had to kind of be that person in many
Mhm.
situations that is, the replacement for actual research.
Mhm.
And it's not easy because you realize that that person's only talking to you because they care about what you specifically think, not necessarily because they care
Yeah.
about this item. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And for you, like you're someone who genuinely cares, right?
Yeah.
So like hopefully that girl, at least through,
I don't
you
know
know,
because I only got
context clues was like,
yeah.
you must give a shit.
I mean, it's obviously for her, it's probably not a formative experience, but like for me, that was
Right.
a very formative experience. Like, there's
Yeah.
been a couple times in my life where my lack of knowledge has really like shown up as like an adult, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I remember every single instance of it. Like, people don't have to jog my memory. It is very formative, and I will not forget about it.
Yeah.
And that was one of
I
those
feel like
moments.
I feel like that's honestly a good thing.
I hope so, but it
um
embarrasses
because
me.
it makes you more curious, and there are a lot of people out there that like to kind of downplay what happened, right?
Mhm.
Like whenever I talk about like slavery, right, and people are like, oh well, who cares, it was such a long time ago, and I'm like, but you realize like we're still living in this.
Mhm.
Like we're still living in this.
Mhm.
Like Black people have always kind of had to exist in two different planes of existence, right? Like that's just how it
Mhm.
is. It's why there's code switching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's why there are Black neighborhoods. That's why there are HBCUs.
Mhm.
And like a lot of people now are like, oh, how dare you have an HBCU? What, you only want to go to school with other Black people? And it's like I think it was Princeton or Harvard, like one of those, like Yale, one of the big,
Mhm.
Ivy League institutions had their Black students on campus say that they wanted, Black housing,
Mhm.
that they wanted an area for Black people to be able to go and live there.
Mhm.
And I remember reading it and reading people being like really frustrated by that, like, oh, this is segregation, this is racism, like
Mhm.
white people saying, like, why would you want that? See, they want separatism. And it's not that anybody wants
Mhm.
separatism, it's that's how they can live best.
Yeah.
They're on a campus where I'm sure half the kids are telling them that they're only there because of affirmative action, not because they're actually smart and on their own merits. I
Yeah.
know that because people used to tell me that all the time growing up, that I was going to go to school for free and,
Mhm.
be able to do whatever I want and take jobs from people and all this nonsense that they were hearing from their parents. And it's hard. Like even now, like I remember growing up and having to have conversations with my mom about how I can and cannot act in public, right? Like, make sure that you don't say this. Make sure you do say that. Make sure you're always polite. Make sure if somebody calls you the N-word, you just come and find me and you tell me about it and I'll take care of it. You don't get upset. I'll get upset. Like, you don't get upset, because my mom was worried that if I got, if I defended myself, that somebody would accuse me of something, right? So like, you've got these black people, and like, again, not every single black person is walking around every day going, "Ugh, Jim Crow." You know what I'm saying? But it does come up. You know what I mean? Like, having to work a full day finding out that like a police officer murdered somebody in broad daylight, and people are actually considering that perhaps it was the person who's murdered's fault. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of trauma, like, that happens. You know what I mean? And then you go to work and you try to talk to your coworkers about it, and your coworkers are blissfully unaware. They're blissfully ignorant. They're like, "Well, I don't see you like that. You would never get held up." And I'm like, "Actually, I have been held at gunpoint by a police officer and was almost shot for apparently not complying, despite I had my hands on my head. I asked before I moved. Like, I did everything by the book. I looked about as non-threatening as I could possibly look. I had pigtails in my hair. I had a party outfit on. Like, I did not look like somebody that was there to like wreck a police officer in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? In the bad part of town. But all she saw was a black person. Like, she didn't look at the car. She didn't look at my license that would have shown her that I had been driving for 9 days. She didn't, you know what I mean? Like, she didn't like take anything in. She just made an assumption about me. So then like, I have to carry that weight. No one else carries that weight but me. And I'm just sitting there with it. And the next time someone talks about how like maybe George Floyd or Philando Castile or Sandra Bland should have complied, I get to dig back into my trauma and dig back into that ridiculous moment and have a kind of a nervous breakdown for a second, because I did everything right and I still found myself in that position. I'm educated. I was in college getting my second degree because I had time to, because I like aced all my classes. Like, it shouldn't have happened to me when you think about like the statistics of who that happens to, but that just goes to show you that it can happen to anybody. The only commonality is that we're all black people. So, like, people, I feel like Dana is in this place where she's dealing with and embracing the change and advancement of 1976. She has a white husband, for Christ's sake, right? She is a published author. She is a free woman. She's independent, fiercely so, right? Didn't even really think marriage was for her. Like, we've got this narrative of this woman that is extremely modern, and yet it's bumping up against this other reality that she has that other people can't recognize and cannot see, that she carries around, privately. Yeah.
I also felt like it's like also that moment was a little bit of foreshadowing of like what we're going to be dealing with Kevin. Like,
absolutely,
a lot of this is going to get blamed on Kevin.
Yeah.
I don't care if it does. But also, oh, the horror, the white man getting them down. Okay. Oh no.
This isn't the same story we've heard so many times before.
Literally though. I'm just like,
jeez.
Oh, the horror, oh, the pain. Anyways, moving right along. But I wonder if it's a little bit of foreshadowing in some ways, just because like she's gonna start looking a lot worse, and there's no one else home with them. There's literally no one else. They don't go to any stores, so.
No. I'm actually happy though that she did bring up like that contrast with when she brought up Gone with the Wind, when she was like, because she's like looking through her home for like all of her like slavery books and all her like accounts that she might have or whatever, which like, again, like that really got me, because like I know in my house I have all kinds of like slave narratives, autobiography of Malcolm X, like I've got all kinds of like black people literature in my home, tons of Toni Morrison. And I know if you go to like the average library of a person, you're not going to find all of this black stuff because they're not black and they don't really think about it. But for me, like, it's integral to my experience, right? So I have a ton of that in my home, and like that's exactly what I would do. The first thing, if this happened to me, I would be like, I need all of the Black history books.
I was just thinking about literally if I looked at my library and I was like, okay, I need something like, all I have is like a lot of like fantasy by black authors. Like, I have nothing of like, nothing's gonna help me here,
Listen, you take your N.K. Jemisin book and you figure out how to multiply that magical realism.
I know. I was like,
that's what you do.
I'm like, I'm just gonna hold them and pray. Like, at that point, I don't know what else to do.
Oh my god!
I'm glad I have the Libby app on my phone, I guess, because like that's the only thing that's gonna get me through here. Obviously. I'm just
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what I
Like,
would do.
I was so grateful for that line though,
Mhm.
because like I can't tell you how many people get like offended when I tell them that I'm not interested in ever watching Gone with the Wind. I saw
It's
Gone with the Wind because Hattie McDaniel was the first Black person to ever win an Academy Award,
yeah.
and I needed to like understand it. But the idea that like the first Black person to win an Academy Award did so by playing like a bowing and scraping subservient mammy
Mhm.
is extremely telling of our society,
Let me
in my
tell
opinion.
you, when I found out what Gone with the Wind like, I was reading Gone with the Wind in public. Okay, you know how I don't read the backs of any books, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I was reading Gone with the Wind in public, in, like, a
Oh, honey.
park
Oh
when I
no.
found out what it was about, and I immediately was
Yeah.
like
And you're like looking around like,
I
huh?
started then instead of, like, normally I read a book like this, I had it on my lap so you couldn't see what I was actually reading. I was like, "I am so embarrassed," but, like, at this point, I it's already, like, settled in, you know? I'm like
What a fucking dark trench coat and
I know, I
glasses
was like,
on.
"Should I get up? Like, should I leave?"
Should I
I was
go?
like I'm like in this
Probably.
moment, I was like, "I'm the problem, okay?" Because, it's first of all, I'm just a, like, white girl sitting on a bench at a beautiful park. There's many, like I live in a rather diverse area, so there's, like
Yeah.
everyone's around, and it's, like,
Right.
a beautiful fall day at the point I'm reading this, so there's, like everybody's there. I was like, "Oh my god, like, I need to go. I need to get out of here," and I'm also, like, waiting for Daniel to arrive, so I'm like, "What are people gonna think when I'm just sitting here reading Gone with the Wind while I'm waiting for my boyfriend to show up so we can go longboarding?" Like,
Listen, he shows up and they're like, that Black man doesn't know what he's in for.
I'm like and it's like I like, also keep in mind this is, like, the height of, like this was right before COVID, so, like, it was, like,
Mhm.
after Get Out came out too. Like, I
Okay.
distinctly remember those being very close in time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone I know what they're thinking, you know? And it's I I didn't know what to do. I was just like, should I just like stop reading? Like at this point, it's like you have to commit. You get to that point where you're like, do I commit to this or do I try and cover up the fact of like reading this novel? Like I was like, and I was so close in the beginning too. I was like, maybe it'll get better.
No.
Maybe Scarlet O'Hara will have like she'll redeem herself or something. Like
No, she's actually really
she's
terrible.
horrible, and there's
Yeah.
no love in that novel. I don't know why they're like, "It's a great American love story." It's not.
It's
It's
not.
not.
But but again, I think that like I feel like Scarlett O'Hara is like the original Karen, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
Like I feel
100%.
like women, like white women were like, now that's a bitch who gets things done. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Like,
She
oh,
fucking throws temper tantrums, faints all the time.
yeah.
That's what we need to be doing. We're gonna get our
When they're
way.
getting the haircut, they're like, "Can you give me the Scarlet O'Hara?" Like,
Oh my god. Dude,
uh,
we gotta make sure we treat these black people real
yeah.
terrible.
As I
And
was
that way we'll feel better about
I
ourselves.
can't get rid of books really either, so, like, as I was putting it on my shelf, I, like, turned it around and stuff. I was like, "Don't look at me." Like
So it's like the one book on your shelf with the pages
yeah,
out.
I'm like, like, I was like, "I can't do it." Like, I just have guilt now, and then, like, I think someone came out to me, and they're like, "Oh, did you enjoy it?" And I was like, "Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
no." And, like, top it off, like, the guest ended up ghosting me, and
Oh
yeah, they
no.
picked the
So you
book.
went through all of that for nothing?
Yeah, well, like,
Wow.
this is when I was still pre-reading the whole book, and then we do all the
Mhm.
episodes, which I, like, learned from and I don't do anymore, but, they ghosted me because it took me, like, a month to read it because it's 1,000
Sure.
pages. It's a
Yeah,
long 'un.
it's
Yeah,
unnecessarily
it's
long.
so long, it hurts me to
Yeah.
hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel you on
yeah,
that.
so it took me, like, a month or a month and a half to, like, actually read it, and I was like, "Hey, I finished it, would you like to?" And then they didn't answer, and I was like, "Honestly, probably for the
Maybe
best."
they read it and were like, "You know what?
Yeah, well, they were like, "This is my favorite book," and
Maybe
I was like, "Okay."
maybe I shouldn't go around saying this is my
Yeah.
favorite book. I don't think I wanna die on this
I was
hill."
like, "I'm too trusting." I think that's what we learned here. Like,
Oh,
when I
sweetheart.
first started this podcast, I was like, "Yeah, everybody, whatever, yeah," and now I'm like, "I need to do a rigorous"
Background check,
yeah,
Google,
yeah, like,
credit check.
"Hold on,
Where do you spend your money?
who do you support?" Okay, like, oh, jeez.
That's what I'm saying though, man. Like when I read that in the book, I was just like, "Ooh." And then she goes on to be like, "Yeah, but I did get into these World War II history books." and that was a more grim and appropriate tale of how people have been pushed to their limits
Yeah.
and the torture
Yeah.
they've put up with in life. And I was like, damn, girl, you went
I
there.
know. I was like, yes,
Because
queen.
like I can't so I am from a place in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania that is
Mhm.
very small town, very like it's a suburb, but it's almost rural. It's outside of Philadelphia.
Mhm.
Not very many black people that went to school there. I'm pretty sure I probably said that already in a previous episode. But I have a lot of Jewish people
Mhm.
from where I'm from, right? And like I remember whenever we would do like holiday festivities and stuff, there would always be like a mom that came in and like made latkes, and a mom that came in and made Christmas cookies or
Mhm.
gingerbread, right? So that everybody could celebrate their holiday. And then they were really disappointed to find out me and my family didn't celebrate Kwanzaa because they really wanted the third holiday in there to
Mhm.
like lock in the diversity. And I was just like, shrug, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And they were like, surely you must know what Hanukkah is and Kwanzaa and Christmas. And I was like, the middle one, no. The other two, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Kwanzaa. I'm so sorry. Is that bad? And I got sent to the principal's office because they were like, you shouldn't be hiding your culture. And I was like, not all black people celebrate Kwanzaa. It was a whole thing. But anyway, I made latkes
Mhm.
and it changed my life. And I remember my friends talking to me about like their grandparents
Mhm.
that were in the Holocaust. And that was the first time that I was like, wait, what? You know what I mean
Yeah.
about history? They were like, yeah, like my grandpa was in the Holocaust and
Mhm.
like he's got a tattoo of a number on his arm. And I'm like, oh, that was like recent then. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I remember someone trying to pass that off like it wasn't a big deal and minimize it, like they tried to minimize slavery. And I'm
Mhm.
like, they were both horrific acts of genocide and
Yeah.
terror that were visited upon a certain group of people for existing.
Mhm.
Like literally, they're both just as serious. And like now I feel like people are more sympathetic to the Holocaust because they feel like, oh, it just happened.
Mhm.
Like it's more recent. You know what I mean? And I'm like, slavery and integration and civil rights, that's an ongoing struggle. Like it's still happening.
Mhm.
Same thing with anti-Semitism, right? Anti-Jewish, you know, anything to do with like being anti-Jewish or, you know, like any of that. Like that's still a struggle that people are fighting today. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So like you can't say any of that's really
Mhm.
over when there are still like active Nazis. There are still active KKK. There's still, you know what I mean? Like the Proud Boys are basically another continuum of that, you know, except combined
Mhm.
now. They hate everybody instead of just one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's wild to me. So like I liked that she at least made that point to kind of connect what happened during the Holocaust to
Mhm.
what happened during slavery, because the circumstances are not exactly the same
Mhm.
by any stretch of the imagination. Um, and obviously there was no upside. You know what I'm saying? The upside that like theorists have tried to kind of like racist theorists have tried to argue with slavery is like, well, the people were fed and they were clothed and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't make what happened
Yeah.
right. They just needed to do that so that they could
Also,
continue this cycle of
they weren't even
violence
supposed to
against
be
these
here.
people.
Like, they literally went
Right.
like, it's not like they were like, "Oh, we came over to America for, like, better livable wage or whatever." Like,
Right.
it
No.
we literally kidnapped people. Yeah.
Stolen. Like stole actual people and
So
families.
there's no
Yeah.
upside because it's like I
No.
guess I could see it if it's like, oh, they were already like super poor and they were
Mhm.
like dying on the side of the street, and then like
We were
if
like, here's an
yeah, if you
opportunity.
wanted to
It
like
is slavery,
romanticize
but it's
this,
better than what you
yeah,
right.
but
Right.
it's like we
No, it wasn't
literally
any of that.
kidnapped people.
Yeah.
What? I'm like I don't
Correct.
understand. Like they probably had families and jobs and like lives
Yeah.
in their like
Absolutely.
home place wherever they're from,
Yeah.
and it's like and then Americans were like, like, what if
Yeah.
we just for funsies like kidnapped a bunch
Yeah.
of people? Like,
And it's had lasting effects too. Is
yeah.
like when you look at Africa, people are like, "Oh, Africa is so poor. It's poor. It's poor. It's
I
poor."
wonder
Right.
why, because we
But then when
sold
you
everybody that was like hardworking. What?
I mean, come on, right? So like you've got people that are along the eastern coast of Africa,
Yeah.
right? Where like people are coming through the Middle Passage and
Hmm.
stuff. So you've got all these people that are like, you know, they work, you know, maybe they have like a rice field,
Hmm.
right? They have like a rice paddy or something because they live in like a low marshy area.
Hmm.
Or you've got other people that have people have adapted over centuries
Hmm.
to be able to farm this land and to be prosperous and to make money and to, you know, do all the things that you do when you have a
Hmm.
civilization, right? Art, music, culture, whatever. Then somebody comes and fucking rounds up this entire village of people.
Hmm.
That land goes untended. The people that were able to escape have to move inland. So anybody that's been farming rice in like a marshy area
Yeah.
is now what, in a desert, and they're supposed to just be fine now?
Yeah.
Like everything that their family has spent like literally lifetimes
Hmm.
learning and understanding about the land and about the way to run their lives now has to be completely upended and relearned. And you're having people that are going into other people's territories that they never used to be a part of, right? So then you have tribal wars because they're like, what the fuck? Why are you coming up in my backyard? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like we have land, you know, divided for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then like that, of course, like that's had a huge domino effect
Mm-hmm.
and a huge ripple effect. Like there are a lot of scholars who have actually done research into that and how, you know, slavery not just affected the people that were taken, but also the remaining land itself
Mm-hmm.
and like the perspectives of the people that were left behind. You know what I mean? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot. And it was really good to have her kind of make that connection, because I feel like sometimes, again, like there's a lot of, well, you know, justification that people try to do now
Mm-hmm.
because we're so far away from it and because so much progress has been
Mm-hmm.
made, you know. But just because a lot of progress has been made doesn't mean that we've like reached the
I
mountaintop.
know.
You know what I'm saying?
Like,
It just means you're a quarter of the way
there's
up, friend.
literally no way to justify it. Like, there's nothing
No.
anybody could say that I'd be like, "Oh, okay." Like, no, like, first of all, someone had to go, like, out of their way to kidnap people.
Yes.
Like, they had to sail over there. Think about
Yeah.
it while they're sailing.
Yep.
Kidnap
build a
them.
build a build a ship.
Yeah. Or
Build a
buy a
ship with the
ship.
capability, right,
Yeah.
with the capability of housing all of these
Yeah.
people extremely uncomfortably.
And then
Like, that's
went
wild to
all the
me.
way over there, which probably took at least, like, a couple weeks to get there.
If not months
Yeah.
sometimes, depending on how hard the
And
water
at
was. Yeah.
no point were they like, "Ah, actually, this is
Maybe
not a
not.
good idea."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, nothing could justify that to me.
Yeah.
I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. Like,
I mean, humanity is extraordinarily cruel, and I feel like these days, like, the least we could do is at least be honest about it,
mhm,
so that we can make sure that that kind of thing never happens again. We can actually try to move toward a place where, like, our civilization, in my opinion, like, you know, barbarism
mhm,
and torture and, you know, all that stuff, pestilence, those are markers of like either a young civilization or a
mhm,
dying one, right? You look at like the Middle Ages with like the Black Plague and then the Renaissance and everything that came after to like, you know, come out of these like, you know, dark times or
mhm,
whatever, right? Like it's like hitting reset. And I'm looking at us like dodging COVID and pretending that like the Voting Rights Act doesn't need to be passed and that it's okay to like restrict, you know, voting rights
mhm,
for people of color and people who don't speak English and, you know, whatever, all this anti-melting pot kind of
mhm,
rhetoric, which is like the antithesis of American patriotism because we are a melting pot and that's what makes us great in the first place,
mhm.
right? And I hear all of this and I'm just like, so like, do we have to have like another like history class? Can there be like a mandatory, I know you can't have mandatory vaccines, but can we have mandatory
Like,
mandatory conversations about actual history? Like there are people coming here every day that are taking their American, you know,
mhm,
government test, right? Their like test to get their green card or their test to get a visa or their test to become an American citizen.
mhm.
And they know more about American history than people that are in office.
Yeah.
Like
I also think there should
I
be
feel
a
like that's
time
wrong.
limit to, those, like, House of Representative and Senate
Oh,
seats.
hard agree.
Because, like, I'm
100%.
sorry, but a 90-year-old man should not make decisions about my body, thank you.
Absolutely not.
We could go on that for all like, way too long.
Tangent.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get
We
back
have
to
to
it.
get back to it because honestly, I'm gonna get too fired up if we, like, even
Yeah,
start going there. Like, if
agree.
we can
Agree.
poke at it, but, like, if I look at it too long, I'm just gonna get a little
No, very
angry.
fired up. I agree. Yeah.
Alright, so that's all we're gonna talk about today. Lots of heavy hitting, lots of talking. We're gonna have to finish the rest of this chapter, hopefully the rest in the next episode, or in multiple episodes. We'll see, because there's a lot to talk
It's a
about.
lot.
Yep. It's definitely a lot. But Candace, where can all the people of the internet find you?
So you guys can find me in a lot of places. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, and several other locations actually at Candace the Magnificent, all one word. You can find me on Twitter or Discord at that Candace Girl. Definitely go by YouTube if you guys want. You can check out my channel. I do ice cream reviews right now. I'm going to be expanding that content to include maybe some book analyses since this has been such a blast, and some ukulele videos. You can also head over to the Dungeon Jedi Masters podcast for Scattered Choices. It's a Star Wars 5e themed Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role playing game that we have turned into more of like a news show, like a news radio show. Or you can look up Valor Studios, Valore, and find me playing Jameson Freeman in their take on Deadlands, and that's going to be back in 2022. And then I'm also going to be in January 2022 in a shorter series for Dungeons and Dragons. So again, that's through Valor Studios. So please check me
Yeah,
out.
do it. You're wonderful. Everyone's going to love it.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
But we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you want more content, please consider joining the Patreon. You get a bonus episode every single month, and you get exclusive early access to episodes. And you get them on Mondays instead of Tuesdays. So if you're all caught up, please consider joining that. It's all donation based, so you can join for as low as $3 a month and get access to a lot of great stuff. And you also get the Patreon Discord. And I would really appreciate it. So if you want some more exclusive content, please consider donating and joining over there. And also, you can check me out on Twitch if you want to see my face and hear me talk about things. And I do like writing sprints, and I do some video games, so please check that out. But I hope you all are having a great week, and that if you celebrated Valentine's Day, you had a good one. If you want to follow me on any social media, I'm at Barely Bookish on literally everything. I have basically all the social media, so you can find me there. Our logo is designed by my little sibling Sarah. Our theme song is by Raphael Crux, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Bye!